Hello, everybody, and good morning to another of the Orchestry webinar series. Today, we are going to talk all about both lifecycle management and provisioning, and lifecycle management, depending on which you find more important. But we have 45 minutes today, and really the goal of today is to go over some of the capabilities we have within Orchestry, talk about some of your challenges as it relates to provisioning, some of the challenges that relates to lifecycle management. And then, of course, as always, during our Orchestry webinars, shows you some of the amazing capabilities and features that we have. And if you're an Orchestry history buff, and why wouldn't you be, provisioning and then lifecycle management were actually the first two features that we launched Orchestry with. So we've got loads of experience and loads of stories and features and capabilities, all types of good stuff that we can talk about for those capabilities. So if you haven't been to any of our webinars before, welcome. My name is Michael Basarik. I'm the CEO and the janitor here at Orchestry. Lots of experience in Microsoft 365, lots of experience within the SharePoint space before it was Microsoft 365 as well. Again, really glad and really passionate about helping organizations or partners or customers such as yourselves get the most value out of Microsoft 365. If you have any questions, either during the webinar or post the webinar, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, you can get in touch with me on X, or you can email me directly as well. More than happy to answer any questions that you might have about Orchestry or Microsoft 365. We'll really help wherever we can. So before we go into what Orchestry is, why did we build the platform? Now, we love Microsoft 365 here. I'm sure that you do as well. And again, the really nice thing about Microsoft 365 is there's so many capabilities, so many features, but also there's some gaps, right, within the platform. And what we found when we were speaking to customers and partners such as yourselves is really there's just so much in Microsoft 365 that Microsoft can't do it all for you. They keep releasing new capabilities. They keep releasing new features. Some of them might be overlaps of existing features and capabilities. So what we really wanted to do was address some of the common challenges that we heard from customers and partners. So the first one is around that lack of visibility and direction. You know, if you are a Microsoft 365 administrator, you know that it's really difficult to understand, what's happening within your environment. You're trying to stitch together typically reports from different administration centers, or you have to use PowerShell to stitch these things together and understand what's going on. And once you do have the data you need, it's also really difficult to understand what action you should take based on that data. You really need to be an expert and live your life in Microsoft 365. So again, what we try to do is give you that visibility and also give you that direction with some of our features within Orchestry. The other thing we hear is about limited IT resources. So again, Microsoft 365 is a massive platform. And for a lot of you, you're not just the administrator for SharePoint or maybe for Exchange, you're the administrator for all of Microsoft 365. And when we spoke to admins such as yourselves, we found that you've got too many things to do. You've got too many end user requests, whether that's around creating Teams or SharePoint sites or around security or just understanding what's going on within the platform. And again, you're limited in time, you're limited in scope, and you're spending time really fighting fires, not really getting the most value out of the platform. The third thing is around lack of governance. Now, we know everyone's favorite word in Microsoft 365, or favorite word starting with G, is governance. Seems to be everyone's favorite word now is Copilot, but everyone's favorite word before Copilot was probably governance. And again, in Microsoft 365, creating a comprehensive governance process and a comprehensive governance strategy can be complex, it can be difficult. Again, you're trying to stitch different tools together and you're trying to get that balance between adoption and between governance. So to enable self-service, but also to make sure that you have enough governance and security in place. And again, what we heard from a lot of you, this can be difficult, it can be complex. You might be looking at having to buy additional licensing for your users as well, which can get expensive. The fourth thing is around security. So security and compliance, obviously huge issues and challenges. There have always been issues and challenges for organizations. It's become much more of an issue and challenge now, particularly around Copilot and AI, because again, Copilot and AI and all of those tools are very good at finding content that you might not even know that you have access to. So again, trying to understand oversharing, trying to understand permissions, trying to understand who has access to what, really difficult, really, really complex. And again, you can do it with Microsoft 365, of course, but it can be a little bit more difficult than one might expect. And then the last thing, and this really talks about what we want to talk about today, is around what to use when and sprawl issues. Sprawl is probably everyone's favorite word on Microsoft 365, starting with S, apart from SharePoint. I'm not sure why I've got the favorite word thing today, but it is what it is. But again, lots of organizations that come to us have really, really significant challenges around things like sprawl, right? Lots of teams created, lots of SharePoint sites created, people, creating things, not really know why they're creating them, using teams instead of sites and sites instead of teams. So again, not really understanding that what to use when issue, right? What should I use for a particular task? Should I use a team, a SharePoint site, a group, a Viva Engage community? And then afterwards, that all results in sprawl because people create teams, create SharePoint sites. There's no real process afterwards to clean all of these things up. So again, it becomes a huge issue. Luckily, we can solve, or we can at least help you with the vast majority of these common challenges that you might be facing. So what is Orchestry? So Orchestry is what we call a Microsoft 365 management, security, and governance platform. We've built the platform, again, to leverage all of the amazing capabilities that Microsoft 365 offers, but to fill in the gaps and provide additional capabilities to give you a really comprehensive experience for both your end users and your administrators. We've got lots of capabilities within Orchestry. We're not going to go through all of them today. If you are interested in knowing about some of the other features, definitely get in touch with us or register for some of our upcoming webinars. Again, the reason that we did this is the first time I tried to do one of these demos, we tried to go through all of Orchestry and it was terrible because it was me speaking at 100 miles an hour. So now we've broken it down into individual areas, but we've got lots of features and lots of capabilities to help you understand what's going on in Microsoft 365 through a rich set of reports, health checks and recommendations to help you apply governance and archiving, and also today around provisioning. So how can we help you really streamline the process of creating teams, SharePoint sites, Viva Engage communities, groups, providing an amazing user experience for your organization, but also because we're going to talk about lifecycle management, how then can we also apply lifecycle management to these pieces as well? So let's say, for instance, you want to standardize on a way to manage projects within your organizations, really common use case. You want to have a really well-defined project template. We're going to use a team. You can use a SharePoint site or something else, but you want to have it standardized. You want to have all of the channels there, all of the tabs there, a SharePoint site, all of the tasks defined, even all of the documents there. And you want to enable that self-service, but apply some additional governance rules. You can do that really quickly and easily with Orchestry. And then from a lifecycle management perspective, you want to make sure that once that project is finished, for example, or has been inactive, that what happens is it gets cleaned up and it gets archived. We're going to go through all of that today, and we can do all of that within Orchestry. If you have any questions, use the chat button. If you haven't been to any of our webinars before, you know we like to keep it pretty light. So please feel free to ask any questions. We'll make sure that we answer them through the webinar as well. And again, if you want to follow us, get in touch with us on LinkedIn, X, or directly through the Orchestry website. Again, we're more than happy to answer any questions going forward. For agenda today, it's going to be a demo of Orchestry, because again, this is supposed to be a demo session. I hate when someone does these sessions and they spend the first 90 minutes or the first 90% of it just showing you slides, and then they're always behind in the demo, and right at the last 5 minutes you actually get to see the product. We don't do those kind of shenanigans here at Orchestry, so we are going to jump straight into a demo here. So let me share my screen here, And let me move this over, and hopefully you can see something that you're familiar with. Now, this demo is going to be within a browser, but again, you're probably pretty familiar with the Teams UI here. And the first thing that we are going to talk about today is about the provisioning experience within Orchestry. So really, how do we create what we call templates, make them available to our users, and then enable that self-service aspect, but also apply governance to this as well. So if you see here, let me just move a couple of screens around. There we go. Sorry, folks, 1 second. Let me close a couple of things here. All right, perfect. Ready to rock and roll. Okay, so there's two parts of this story within Orchestry from the provisioning standpoint. The first part is the templating experience within Orchestry. We have an extremely powerful mechanism that really lets you template anything in Microsoft 365. Being able to template out Teams complete with channels and tabs and apps. Being able to template out SharePoint sites so you can have SharePoint pages, lists, libraries, documents, all of those things can be templated out through here. We can even template things like a planner as well. And what this means is you can create specific types of templates for your organization. So maybe it's project teams, maybe it's onboarding teams to onboard employees, maybe it's other types of teams or SharePoint sites that you might want to have. You can easily create these, point Orchestry at it, and make this a template that then allows you to go and make these available to be requested by your end users. All of this without any custom code, all of this without any technical expertise as well through here. The other part of Orchestry, not just the templating around the structure, is also the ability for us to add additional governance rules and additional features as part of that provisioning process. Think of common things you might want to do, like naming conventions, to make sure that your organization names things correctly, or maybe the ability to have approvals and so forth. And all of that we can do as well. And all of this is surfaced up for your end users and for your administrators through the Orchestry tab here. So again, Orchestry is an app that will get deployed into your environment. And once you've set up the individual templates that you might want to use, and again, we have a series of examples here. Maybe it's an internal project, maybe it's a department template. And again, the other nice thing is it's not just for Teams. It can be team sites, they can be communication sites, maybe for your intranet. They can even be Viva Engage communities. So we want that experience for your users and for your organization to be centralized, that from a single entry point in Orchestry, whether I'm in the Orchestry Teams app or through the Orchestry URL, I can go in and I can request directly what I need. And again, this can help drive a huge amount of adoption, because as a user, there's a false narrative around that your users are going to go create a team, configure SharePoint sites, add web parts. No one really does that. It's far too complicated. It's much easier to give them a really rich starting point. So let's go through a use case. So imagine in your organization, you want to standardize on a way to manage internal projects. And what you've decided, which is very much best practice, is that every internal project that's going to be its own team. That makes complete sense. This team is going to have a number of different channels, and these channels are going to have a number of different tabs through here. And what we've done here is we've created a team, again, based around some best practices for a project. We have a general channel, which has a whole range of information through here. We have this beautiful SharePoint site that we've already configured as well. By the way, this template comes standard out of the box with Orchestry. So if you want this template, get in touch with us. We can get you on a trial and you'll get this straight away. But here, we're not just templating out the channels and the tabs. We can also template out the SharePoint site. So imagine if I'm a project manager and I know that every time I want to run a project, I get my team fully created. All of these channels are going to be configured, right? Maybe I've got my project kickoff template here ready to go within here. All of the channels are going to be configured for me. The SharePoint site is going to be configured for me as well. So again, I don't have to do that. And in our example, we've got a SharePoint site here, with some web parts here. I can go and even see who the team owners are. I can see the status as well through here as well. Again, these are a couple of the custom Orchestry web parts that come here as well. But again, I can also pin other pages. So to communicate project status here, we've got a beautiful SharePoint page, which already we've created. We've got some custom list stuff through here as well, which we're doing. But again, the really nice thing is I've just configured this out of the box, and I'm going to make this into a template within Orchestry without needing any custom code. And it's not just for SharePoint. Of course, one of the big things around managing projects in particular is managing things like tasks. Well, imagine if you could also template out your tasks. We also have the ability within Orchestry to template out things like Planner, for instance. So again, now as a project manager, when I go and request a project, I also have all of my tasks available through here. And of course, there's lots of different ways to manage tasks within Microsoft 365. Maybe I want to use Planner, or maybe I want to use something like Microsoft Lists. Again, we're going to support all of this for you as well. So really simple, really easy, and really, really beautiful. So the question is, how do I take something like this? Oh, one more thing. The other thing we also template is the files. I think this is the most powerful feature because, again, now you can make sure when someone requests a team or a SharePoint site, all of the files are there available for them as well. So for a project, we have all of these files that we can have, right? Standard, ready to go here. So users don't have to go and copy files from somewhere else and everything else. But again, we can also template out the library, template out the files, even template out things like views. So you can encourage a user to use views here as well. So how do I take this team that I've created here and make this into a template, add some governance rules, and make this available? So if I go back to the Orchestry app here, I'm going to go on Orchestry Management through here. Now, again, your end users aren't going to see the Orchestry Management tab here. This is just really for administrators. But what we're going to go here is go into Workspaces and go into the Templates section of Orchestry. Through here, I can now start to define all of the various different types of templates that I had. And in this case, we want to work with our internal project template. We want to create a template, or we want to use that existing team that we had, and we want to make that available for our users to go through the provisioning process. So what's really nice about Orchestry is from that end user side, it can be confusing using out of the box. They're not really guided. We can add lots of additional context here so people know exactly what they're requesting and why they should be requesting it. So we're going to set a name here, give it a description, a beautiful template image as well through here. Lots of other options. You can have things like a default logo. So every project is going to have the same logo associated with it. And to make something into a template within Orchestry, we have this concept of a live template where you're going to point or look at an existing team or existing SharePoint site and use that as a template. And that's all I have to do. So that internal project team, if you remember that we had before, we can go and search for that. We can click on this, and now we're going to copy everything over, right? All of the channels, all of the tabs, clone the security, clone the applications, clone everything in SharePoint, all of those good things as well. So that's one part. But the other part, as we talked about, is we also want to give our users to request these workspaces, but we want to add additional guardrails to the process. And there's lots of additional guardrails that we can add using Orchestry. We can maybe get users to choose from a series of sensitivity labels as part of a template, or we can default the permission. We can also make sure there's a minimum number of owners and a minimum number of members. This is really, really fantastic because, again, instead of people creating a team, I go create a team called Michael's Lunch Test. I never really use it again. What we can do is then make sure that we can go and essentially have a minimum set of owners and a minimum set of members applied through here. So really great from a governance perspective through here. From an approval side, we can have things like approval processes. We can have things like naming conventions defined as well, but we can also control lots of other areas and aspects. Things like removing, disabling that group welcome email, hiding it from the GAL, or even controlling security around what people can share through their SharePoint sites directly here within templates. A couple of features that I really love, one of them is around the workspace approval process. So again, this is really, really beneficial because what this allows you to do is to have different types of approvals for different types of workspaces. So again, if you've got certain types of sites or teams that you might want to make sure that need to have an additional level of approval before they get provisioned, we can do that for you as well. And then the last thing is around naming policies. Now, every organization is terrible at naming teams and SharePoint sites and groups and everything else. We know that's a challenge, and we can solve that using Orchestry. And the way that we do that is what you can do is configure what we call metadata. Think of metadata as attributes that you might want to capture when someone creates a team, a SharePoint site, a group, or something else. And again, this can be fairly standard type of information: location, division, customer, project code, department, project ID, all of those things. We can capture that information through here. And then what we can do is, if we go to our naming policy section, we can then use that information that we've captured to construct really complex but powerful naming conventions. So we're going to say for every project that gets requested, we, instead of users just putting in just the name of the project or maybe a number or some nonsensical value, we are going to prefix the name of the team with PRJ, so people know that it's a project. We're going to then put a dash, then the location value, then the division value, and then the name of the team or the SharePoint site itself. So again, users don't have to know these rules. They don't have to know anything about governance. All they have to do is use Orchestry. All of these governance policies are going to be applied for them, and they're going to get this really beautiful workspace. Lots of other capabilities from the admin side, but what does this look like from the end user side? So again, if I pretend that I'm a user here, again, I don't have to go to Teams to create Teams or SharePoint to create SharePoint. I can go into Orchestry here. From here now, if I click on the Requests tab, again, I can see all of the different types of templates that have been made available to my organization. So I know that we all want to work on a project together, right? I can maybe filter by the type of template that it is. So here we've got 2 project style of templates. I can search through here, but I can also understand what I'm going to create. So in this case, we want to create an internal project. If I don't know exactly if this is right for me, I can click on this. And again, you can be taken to another area. In this case, we've just taken the user to the Viva Engage or to the intranet kind of page. It helps me understand exactly what these templates are for. But I know we want to all create and work on an internal project together. So I'm going to click on this and click on continue. The next thing that we also allow you to do with Orchestry is around customization. We know that templates are great, but we also know that not every single project is going to be exactly the same. And we know in a lot of organizations, they want to standardize on particular tools in Microsoft 365 for particular types of use cases. So as you know, there's 100 different ways to manage tasks. There's 100 different ways to manage documents. Imagine if you can standardize on a way in your organization to use one particular type of tool for a particular use case. And we call these Orchestry features. So imagine if I'm a project manager, I know that my project workspace comes with a bunch of really, really good stuff, but I also want to know, or I also want to manage risks in some way as well. So instead of me having to understand, how to create a risk register or whether to use a list or a library or a web part or a Power App or, God only knows, create a Copilot for it, I can just go into Orchestry, click on this feature and click on Add, right? And then depending on how it's being configured, this is going to be automatically added to my workspace. Really powerful capability through here, because again, it solves the what to use when issue, not just at the workspace level, but also at the individual functionality level. And of course, you can create your own custom features. You can also have different features for different types of templates. So really, really powerful. Next thing I have to do is to put in, or do the most dangerous thing for end users, is put in the name of the workspace. So here, I'm going to choose the location as Africa and the division as accounting. And remember, this is all customizable to your organization. I'm going to click on next. Notice that the name of my workspace is already partially filled in. I have a logo that's already attached to this as part of my policy, so I don't have to do that as a user. And I can see that if I change the location through here, the name of this is automatically going to change also. The other thing that we also do to try to stop that sprawl and duplication really before it happens is to do a name check for you. So again, we can see here that this group name already exists, so we're not going to show you that. But we also are saying, hey, there's already a bunch of other Teams and SharePoint sites that you already have access to, right? That, again, already exist within your organization. So again, you can stop that sprawl and duplication, and you can stop people creating something that already exists here. So I'm going to call it pilot program 2025 here. Again, the group name is going to be automatically defined for me based on my naming convention, right? The name here of the workspace is already defined, really quick and really simple. Next thing I'm going to do is, again, put in all of the permissions. So there's lots of governance happening here, but again, we can make this all very, very simple and very transparent for our end users, default owners, default members, minimum owners, minimum members. I also have to choose a sensitivity label. So I'm going to say that this one is top secret here for our program here, for our pilot program. And then also I need to add at least another member. I can see I've got one here, but I need to add one more. So I'm going to add, let's say, Adele through here. Now I can continue. So again, really quick, really beautiful, really simple process that you can define for your end users. Lots of capabilities and lots of features through here. And again, I always can see exactly what's going on through here as well. So I can see exactly when my request came through. Now, let's pretend that I'm an administrator. So I can see here, if I go to my activity feed, because I'm also an approver of these particular workspaces, and there's an approval process associated with this. As an approver, I can see this through here. You know, I can see what someone has requested. I can edit this request, do all of that stuff. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to click on approve. And then what's going to happen is Orchestry is going to start that provisioning process for you, right? So again, you'll start to see this in real time. Everything is going to be logged, but I can see exactly, right, everything that happens. And in a few minutes, you're going to get a fully built out team, fully built out SharePoint site, right? Everything there, everything is going to be ready to go for you. Everything in Teams, everything in SharePoint, all of the documents, all of the tasks, all of the lists and libraries and apps, everything is there. So that experience for your users is going to be simple and beautiful. And from a governance perspective, you're also going to have your naming convention defined and all of your security pieces defined as well. So that's great from the provisioning side. But what's going to happen, though, if people go and create a lot of these teams and a lot of these SharePoint sites? How can I then go and add lifecycle management to these things as well? So luckily, we can do that with Orchestry as well through here. So our lifecycle management capabilities have a bunch of different features, but the one that I'm going to talk about today is what we call renewal or archival policies, or what we call archival policies. The first thing, of course, is another part of Orchestry. We're not going to go through today is our workspace dashboard and our reporting features. Of course, you want to be able to understand what you're applying lifecycle to. So we have a whole range of features around that. But today we're going to talk about archival policies. These are really the most powerful types of policies that we have because they allow you within Orchestry to go and create rules around particular types of workspaces. They could be teams, team sites, communication sites, Viva Engage communities, whatever else, allow you to define when those policies execute and then really allow you to define what happens. So you can add lifecycle management, not just to newly created content, but also to historical content that you have. So let's say that what we want to do in our organization is we want to define a lifecycle policy that says, listen, for any team that exists, whether it exists before Orchestry or whether it exists after Orchestry, whether it was created out of the box or conversely, whether it's created with Orchestry, we can support both. And what we're going to say is we're going to have a policy that every time a team is inactive for more than 180 days, we are going to go and we're going to contact the owners and we're going to get a notification or an approval for what's called an in-place archive. So again, lots of flexibility here so we can tailor this to your organization. But in this case, we're going to say for any team that's inactive for more than 180 days, and of course, what's really wonderful here is we can have different types of inactivity thresholds. What we want to do is we want this policy to execute. And the way that we want it to execute is we actually want to go out and proactively get approvals from the owners of that particular workspace. The reason that this is so powerful is, again, as your organization gets bigger, and you might have tens, hundreds, or thousands of SharePoint sites, you don't want to be deleting stuff accidentally, and you certainly don't want to have your administrators or your IT teams making decisions around content. So the most powerful way, and really the only way to do this at any sort of scale, is to get your content owners involved, right? So reach out to your team owners, reach out to your SharePoint site owners, and let them make the decision. So here we're going to say for this policy to execute, we're going to get an approval. In this case, the approval is going to be from the workspace owners. Again, it could be members. It could also be specific users or groups as well through here, which could be really powerful. So again, if you want to centralize this process, you can. But typically, you want to go and ask your workspace owners. Again, as you know, no one really answers the first of anything. So we're not just going to try to contact these people once. We're going to try to contact them once a day, and we're going to try for 5 amount of times. Again, super beneficial because we know that organizations, when they're trying to do a massive Teams cleanup, one of the main challenges they have is just the effort it takes to chase people, right? Chase people down, find out who they are, when in this case, Orchestry can do all of the chasing for you. Now, once we've gone and gotten approval from the workspace owners, we also want to archive this particular workspace. And again, just a final thing just around these notifications, what's really nice around Orchestry is these notifications can either be sent by email or directly within Teams through the Teams notifications, or both. So again, lots of options and really, really powerful through there as well. The other thing that we also want to have is, well, if we send this out to an owner, we also want to give them a couple of options. So again, one of the options that we want to give them is not just the ability to renew their workspaces or archive their workspace, but also give them the ability to delete their workspace as well. So again, really useful, where we can go out, proactively ask the owners, hey, do you still need this or not? And again, allow them to make the decision of whether they want to renew the workspace. So renew it for a certain number of times so they keep using it, to archive it, which I'll talk about, or also to delete it. The other really powerful thing about Orchestry is not only is it a lifecycle management platform, but it's also an archival platform all built into one. Because again, we know that out of the box, the archiving capabilities in Microsoft 365 are fairly simple. Either the content just sits where it is, or you delete the content, or the new and the third option now is you move it to the Microsoft 365 archive, where it sits in this archived state. Again, that's a great option. It can cause some issues. For instance, that content isn't searchable, for instance, and you can't apply any other types of policies in terms of retention to it at the moment either. But with Orchestry, you've got a lot of fine-grained control in terms of how you really want to archive content through here, through a series of what we call archival actions. So think of archival actions as all the things you really want to do when you archive something, but you're never going to do because you're never going to do this manually, and your users definitely are not going to do this, right? As far as they're concerned, once a workspace is not being used, once that project is over, they're not going to go back and clean it up and remove people and strip out shared links and all of that sort of good stuff. What they're really going to do is just leave it. Well, luckily, with Orchestry, we can automate that entire process for you. So what might be some of the actions, some of the things that we might want to do as part of an archival process? Well, of course, for a team, the first thing we want to do is set the team status to archive through here. On the SharePoint side, again, lots of powerful capabilities. We might want to set the SharePoint side to read only. If you're getting ready for Copilot in particular, you might also want to make sure that that the site isn't visible for Copilot as well through here. So we can do that automatically for you. On the naming side, you probably want people to know that it's been archived. So again, lots of great capabilities here into automatically changing the name of the workspaces. So I can see, when it was archived, and we can put today's date in through here. And again, in the same way that we can build up these naming policies from a provisioning standpoint, we can also do the same thing from an archival standpoint. But there's a couple of things that I really love. One of them is based around security, and the other one is based around making sure that you don't keep versions of content around, either from, again, a compliance perspective or from a storage perspective, and have to pay Microsoft for storage. So on the security side, we can also do things like remove, change, or alter permissions as part of the archival. And this is really, really powerful, because what we're going to say here is when someone goes and archives a team, we're going to remove access for the members, we're going to remove access for the guests, and we're going to change the owners to a particular group of users through here. So again, you're not going to have guests having access to something that they might not necessarily have. You're not going to have, members who shouldn't be there. We can do all of that cleanup for you. The other thing is around content. We know a lot of organizations have a lot of content, and a lot of it is not needed. Again, these can cause challenges. The biggest one, of course, is if you're paying Microsoft storage, or you're about to run out of storage, you can get hideously expensive really, really quick. But also from a compliance perspective and getting ready for Copilot, do you really need to store 500 versions of all of the content that you might need? We don't necessarily think so. So again, as part of that archival process, what I can also do is archive just the most current version, or archive just the major versions. Again, the great thing around this is now you're going to save probably around 90% of storage costs as well. So everything that you want to do is all going to be kind of part of this archival process. Okay, so what does this look like in action, and how easy are these things to apply? Well, luckily for all of us, super easy. So let's go back to Orchestry here. Here's a workspace here that we have created before, this Pilot 25 workspace through here. Again, this is part of our really powerful reporting capabilities through here. Not only can I see exactly, everything about the workspace, the metadata, I can also see how many documents and how much storage and all of that sort of stuff as well through here. But we can also see the policies applied. Now, what I'm going to do is just force the archival of this. So again, in this case, we have to wait 120 days because that's the inactivity until our policy is triggered. We haven't got 120 days here, so we're going to force the archiving of this. But think of it as once you have these policies attached, Orchestry every night is going to go, look at all of your content, look at the policies that you have attached, and if the inactivity matches, then the status of this workspace is going to change. And again, all of this is going to happen in the background. So once you've had the setup, you're not going to need this. We're just going to force the archival of this so we can see exactly what this looks like. So I can see here now that the status of this has changed from active to pending approval through here. You also see that because I'm an owner and because I'm playing every single role within this demo, I also get a notification. But imagine if I'm a Teams owner, right? I'm working away directly within Teams. I get notified, hey, this particular team that I'm an owner of, it's been classified as inactive and has been marked for archival. What would you like me to do? Again, we have our options here. I can either renew it for another 120 days, I can archive it, or I can delete it. In this case, I'm actually going to renew this workspace. So I'm going to say, I still need this as the project has been extended. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to click on submit. And that's basically it, right? Now, again, the state of this is going to change from pending approval to workspace renewed. The really nice thing as well, if I clicked on archive, then all of those archived capabilities will essentially go and fire. But the other really nice thing is as well, if I click on view details through here, all of the life cycle is going to be taken through here as well. So now we can see the status of this workspace has been renewed, and I can see exactly what's happened through our renewal or archival history through here. So again, really, really powerful capabilities, and everything is going to be tracked here for you. But that's how we can add lifecycle, right? So again, now Orchestry can help you on the provisioning side of things, so helping you understanding, creating those workspaces, adding those approval processes and everything else. And then we can also add lifecycle management to this. And once you've done this and attached this to all of your workspaces, you now have a complete overview to understand how your workspaces exist. So all of the ones that are active, all of the workspaces that are inactive, sorry, all of the ones which are pending approval as well through here. So here's a whole range of workspaces that we've sent out a notification, but no one has replied to them. All of the workspaces that have been renewed, right? So here's all of the ones that have been renewed through here. And then the final thing is here's also all of the workspaces that have been archived as well. So again, really, really powerful capabilities because I can see exactly what's happened. So for instance, for Chris's workspace through here, if I click on here, I can see that it's been archived. I can see when it's been archived. And if I look at the lifecycle management here, I can see exactly what's happened here. So here's everything else that's basically happened through here. And again, the other thing that I can also do is if I look at the archival actions, I can see exactly all of the actions that have happened as well through here, right? So I can see exactly what's happened, how's happened, and all of those pieces. So again, complete overview, both from a provisioning side, but also from the lifecycle management side as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. Let me go and present back here and we'll finish this up. Again, hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea just how powerful the Orchestry platform is. So again, making sure you're provisioning, right? That piece of creating those templates, adding those rules and making that all available is there, as well as adding all of the lifecycle pieces. So you can be in complete control of your environment whenever you need to. If you are interested within Orchestry, again, we offer fully functional free trials. Again, not only will you get the provisioning and the lifecycle management capabilities of Orchestry, you get the whole platform into your environment, everything secure, so you can understand what's happening, you can clean up your inactive workspaces, right? You can provision things and all of those pieces as well. So hopefully that was useful for all of you. Thank you so much for attending. If you do have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to us, whether it's through the website or directly at hello@orchestry.com. And thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time for another demo webinar. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.